Good evening, everyone from South Africa. This is Dr. Tash Reddy, and I'm so excited to be here with you today. We have such an amazing guest, and we're talking about the mind and how we're going to work with it. We have a guest from London who's now moved to Florida in the United States, and he's just been doing amazing work with emotions and spiritual counseling. He's got a PhD in spiritual counseling, and at first I wondered what it was. But Dr. Stephen Paul Edwards is not here to teach us or to preach to us. He's here to show us what spiritual counseling is, and I'm so excited to hear about it. So we're joining you on your trauma talks. This is Mental Health Bytes on Tuesday evening, but Dr. Edwards, it's obviously morning for him, and we're so grateful that he could join us today. And he's going to be talking to us about his book, The Venus Fly Project, a book that is actually such an amazing book to read. There's so many lessons in there that can teach you about life and how to handle life. And one of the most amazing things about Dr. Stephen is that he's not actually talking about anyone else. He's revisiting himself, his own personal experiences, and he's sharing that with us. So I'm so excited about having him on the show and chatting to him. And as we go through the next hour, remember you can catch us live on YouTube or on Facebook, and we on all platforms, streaming platforms, so you can always catch the show whenever you need to. And let's welcome our esteemed, amazing guest, Dr. Stephen Paul Edward. Dr. Stephen, welcome.
Wow, that was
to
quite
Mental Health Bytes.
That was quite an introduction, Dr. Tash. Halfway through, I'm going, wow, I want to meet this guy. He sounds amazing. So thank you for that. It's very kind of you. And we're already having fun, right? We've had all kinds of technical issues, stuff going on. It's been hilarious, but we're having fun with it.
Hey, I live in South Africa.
I know, right? I know you're in South Africa. I'm from England. I live in Florida. I mean, how confusing can it get, right? I mean, we've got everything going on here, right? But it's all good.
Right.
It's all exciting. And I know everybody's going to have a great time. Even though we kind of got thrown into the deep end a little bit, right? Because we didn't actually know that you and I were going to be making the show, right? So it's perfect. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is not planned. This is all spontaneous. And I think it's going to be great. So I'm excited. So what would you like to ask me first? You want me to just tell them a little bit about myself? I mean, I know you just told them a lot about me,
I would love to know everything about you, Dr. Stephen, but one of the things that really, sorry, I have a curious mind. One of the things I'm really so curious about is spiritual counseling, right?
Okay.
And I hope during the hour, you and I can both share our experiences with each other and maybe bounce off each other, what it meant in terms of spirituality, a heartbreak, a mental trauma, whatever trauma we faced, if we could bounce off each other and share those experiences with each other. But obviously, you are the highlight of the show, and you're going to be the center of everything. So yes, please tell us a little bit more about yourself. How did you go from Blackpool, right, in the UK to Florida? It's one of my favorite places in the world. If I could live anywhere in the world, it would be Florida. I've been there a few times. So how did you end up in Florida?
Man, that's about 6 podcasts there, right? So minimum, right? So I grew up in England, Blackpool, as you said, right? And I had a very traumatic childhood, and then people go, "Yeah, me too." I mean, we all did, right? At some level, right? We all experienced trauma. It's part of the human condition, right? It's what actually is very important because it helps make you who you are, right? What you do with that trauma. Anyway. So I went through some traumatic experiences, which do play into the story of the book, obviously, because these patterns are created when we're very young. In fact, there is a famous pastor that once said, give me your boy until he's 7 years old, and I will show you the man. It's all created there. All the patterns, beliefs, everything were formed there. But we don't recognize it, right? We don't realize that it's all patterns, right? Now, you can change patterns, but Who knows that? Very few people. I didn't know that as a kid, right? I thought I was the only one going through trauma, right? It's not like we all get together at school and say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, are you going through trauma? We just don't talk about it, right? Because we're ashamed of it, right?
Yeah.
Be honest, right? We're ashamed of it. So all this going on,
Mm-hmm.
in my house, I felt like I was walking on eggshells all the time. It was very stressful to the point where when I went to bed, I had to bang my head on the pillow until I fell asleep because I was so frustrated. There was so much rage and
Mm-hmm.
anger inside me because it was so suppressed. To the point where when I was 16 years of age, I had what was what was described as a manic episode of mania, right? And so I was diagnosed as being a manic
Mm-hmm.
depressive, which we would know that here today as being bipolar. So I was super
Mm-hmm.
high, right? I loved everybody, right? But they put me in an asylum because loving everybody is weird, right? So it's not normal. So they put me in an asylum, and
Yeah.
they put
Yeah.
the straps on me and everything. I'm thinking I'm not going to hurt anybody. I'm going to love everybody, right? But anyway, so finally they said, okay, well we got to get him out of this terrible state. They put me in electroconvulsive therapy, putting thousands of volts through your brain to help you forget, right? I mean, holy shit. Yeah, it did make me
Mm-hmm.
forget, but it also made me forget who I am, right? So to the point where they
I
give you,
believe that it is it true. I mean, I've never had it, right? But with a lot of the
you should
people and
try it.
patients
You
I
should
have,
try it. You should try it, Dr. Tan. It's
no,
amazing.
no, no, I am terrified.
You should
So
be. You should be.
a lot of them tell me that you lose some of your memory.
Yes, you do
Do you
for
actually lose some of your memory?
the rest of your life. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So
Wow.
if I can't remember your name at the end, you'll understand. I'm just kidding. I will remember your name. But you do lose part of your
It's four
memory, right?
letters. It's four letters.
Yeah, exactly. And it's written on the screen. I don't think I should have a problem. But on a serious note, yes, you do. You lose part of your memory, right? It's a really bad thing. But anyway, I had this. But what my point is about that is that all my life I've been ashamed of that because everything told me I should be ashamed of it. If I went for a
Mhm.
job, it would say on the application, have you ever had any mental illness? Well, what am I going to say? Yes, I'm not going to get the job, right? So you're almost put in a position
Mm.
where you've got to keep it in and lie about it and hold it back because it's shameful. And back then, when I was a kid, it was, having a mental illness was not considered to be something that could be healed. It was not something that was considered normal. And I talk about we all live on a spectrum of insanity, but we'll talk about that either later or another time. My point about all this was that I was
Mhm.
having experiences that I felt ashamed of, right? And there are lots of others that I talk about in the book. I spill the beans, right? I mean, I spill the tea, right? And there's a number of reasons I do that. First of all, because it explains how these patterns in my life began, right? When I was young. And to also say to people, look, we all have what they call
Mhm.
skeletons in the closet, right? That were made, or we think were made, or we think we should be ashamed of. And that isn't true, right? There's nothing to be ashamed of. But the problem is, if we think there is, we'll always be afraid that people will find out about it. And then if they find out about it, they may judge us, or they might not love us anymore, or they may not want to be friends with us anymore, or they may not want to be our parents anymore, whatever it might be, right? And so there's that
Mhm.
unconscious fear that these things that have happened in our lives are things that we should be ashamed of and not talk about. The problem is when we do that, we put ourselves in a prison, right? That we're so afraid people will
Mhm.
find out about it, we keep it down. So we're only living a fraction of our potential, right? We don't realize that. We think it's the right thing to do. But now we've got these walls around us that actually isolate us and make us feel alone. Because there's part of you saying, yeah, you say you love me, but you really don't know who I am.
Mm.
That if you find that out about me, maybe you won't love me anymore, right? And so at some
Mhm.
point, and
Mhm.
this is why this relationship that I'm in the book isn't it's an insane relationship, right? I mean, really insane, and it was very
Mm.
toxic. But it helped me understand later that people think, well, why does this toxic relationship? How am I doing that? What is wrong with me? Right now, that's a bad question to ask, right? There's nothing wrong with you, nothing. You've pulled that person into your life, not for them to do something
Mm.
to you, they're doing something for you. That's a
For you.
huge shift in consciousness, right? Because we tend to be victims, right? Oh, he did this to me. She did that to me. Life did this to me. God did this to me. No, they
Mhm.
did it for you. Now, easy to say, different to live, right? It's easy to say when everything's going great. Yeah, this is happening for me. Easy to see, right? But when the most traumatic, different, difficult experiences are in your life, it's difficult to see that it's actually happening for you because people will say, listen, no, they did it to me. I've got the receipts. I can show you. I got the videotape. This is what they did. Well, it's not saying they didn't do anything. It's not saying that you have to accept that that's okay, but they didn't do it to you. They did it for you. So you will see something about yourself that they are a mirror of you. They're mirroring back parts of you that you've given away during the course of your life. And so
Mhm.
they are getting you to see you, your qualities that you're not living fully. Like one of the things I admired about her and drew me to her, besides her external beauty, was the fact that she was so authentic. She didn't care what people thought. I'm going to be me. And, I would complain about her being me, right? I would say, look, you got to stop doing this, this, and this, and this. It's crazy. And she would say, listen, you knew what you were getting when you met me. Stephen,
Mhm. Mhm.
I will never be normal. But you love that about me. You love the fact that I'm not going to be normal. You're not normal either, right? So you got to take both sides. And I went, you can't argue with it, right? She's right. Yeah. And so I admired that about her. Why was she showing me that? Because I wasn't being my authentic self. I was compromising myself to be accepted and liked, to have this persona that I could put onto the world, accepted, right? But it wasn't me. It was a persona. It was an identity that wasn't real, right? And so she was teaching
Dr.
me.
Edwards, Dr.
Mhm.
Edwards, if I can just interrupt you
Cool.
there
Yeah.
for a moment,
Cool.
because I'd love to get your feedback on this. I mean, I'm listening to you, and it's almost I was also in a mental institution when I was young, very, very young. And to this day, I'm still called a mental case and psycho and, all of those things. So
Yeah.
it's not something you can ever run away from. It's something
Right.
people treat you like for the rest of your life. And I think it gets thrown back in your face all the time, even when you can achieve, the heavens. It's still thrown back in your face that you have a mental problem. But for me, it's always about, it's not what, it's not about your shortcomings, but how you overcome them. But then
Yeah.
when you talk about relationships, right? And I did the same thing, and I saw in when I was reading up on the Venus Fly Trap project, I saw that you speak a lot about guilt. And one of the things that I did was make myself guilty. Like, what did I do wrong?
Mhm.
I did this, I did that, I did that. But what happens in a case where, like in your case, she showed you her authentic self. What happens in a case when people that come into your life come with different personas that change with each person they with?
Yeah, and that's gonna happen, like you like
They put on a
sorry.
mask or to that.
Yeah, you're cutting out a little bit. Can you hear me?
All right. So what happens when you meet someone and invite someone into your life who's not authentic, but actually has it puts on a mask or persona that changes, but they do it in that they do it so that it benefits them the most. How do you
Yeah.
handle that?
All right. Well, I'm not saying that everybody comes into your life is going to be authentic. I'm just saying that's what she was showing me for me. not for everybody, right?
Yes, yes,
So each
yes.
person is each
Yeah.
person that you pull into your life is going to show you different aspects of yourself, right? And if that person is constantly changing the masks and becoming a chameleon, that's what she did as well, right? She did that. She could be anything anybody wanted because she has a mental disease called
Mm-hmm.
borderline personality disorder. Borderline personality disorder means they don't have an identity. So they're constantly changing it to fit the person that they're with at the time. So, you know, what you do in that situation is kind of a different thing than talking about what you're seeing in them that's a reflection of you. Um, but if you recognize that a person is
Mm.
doing that, then you got to get out of the relationship, right? Because how is it going to get
Mm.
better, right? So we stay in. So people say, well, it's not that easy to get out of a toxic relationship. You're right, it isn't, right? And then that's how you compromise who you are to be with them, and slowly you give pieces of yourself away until you don't, right? Until
Mm-hmm.
you're no longer getting enough out of that toxic relationship to make it worthwhile giving pieces of yourself away. That can take a long time, right? So in a toxic relationship, now not every relationship is toxic, as you well know, but if in a toxic relationship, there's always a giver and a receiver, right? So no matter how much the giver gives, it's never going to be enough. No matter how much the receiver gets, it will never,
Mm-hmm.
ever be enough. So you just completely pull all the energy out of both of you, right? Until you're completely depleted. You
Okay.
no longer know who you are. And at
Mm-hmm.
that point, you got to make a decision at that point. The decision is either I stay in this and I literally go insane, or I have to get
Mm-hmm.
out of it. I have to let that other person go, right? Not on judgment, just on the fact for self preservation, right? Not be-
Preservation. Yeah.
right, not because you don't love that person. You can still love that person even though they're destroying you, because they're probably not doing it
Mm.
consciously, right? They're still inside
Absolutely.
a beautiful soul, a beautiful spirit. You
Yeah.
have so many beautiful memories with them. It's not like it's all trauma, right? I mean, you have built a relationship, and
Yes.
for usually the giver falls in love and the receiver doesn't, but it doesn't really matter, right? The point is that no matter what, at the end it's difficult for both of you, because the receiver is going to feel like they're being abandoned. Usually that's a deep wound for them, particularly with borderline personality disorder. People don't understand with that
Mm.
disease that nobody wants to be abandoned, right? It's a painful for everybody, but it's magnified by 100 or someone with borderline. They're terrified of being abandoned, right? So if you break up with them, it's devastating to a degree that most people can't understand. But pain is part of growth, right? You want to build a muscle in the gym, you're not going to go in there, put music on and just start hanging out and get fit, right? You got to actually do the work. And it's going to be resistance. And it's not, sometimes you walk out of the gym and you think, holy shit, I just got my ass kicked, right? I feel like I'm aching, I'm hurting, whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
so life is the same thing.
Yeah.
Pain is a necessary ingredient in growth. If we didn't have pain, we wouldn't
Mm.
do
Mm.
anything, right? We wouldn't move. We'd be just like, yeah, nothing's going to happen to me. Everything's fine. But pain causes us to move. It causes us to look at things in ways we wouldn't if there wasn't pain. So we have to walk through the fire. And, in this case, this relationship for me was what is called in, spiritual circles, the dark night of the soul. This was my dark night of the soul, where I had to let who I was then die. They no longer exist. That person is not here on earth anymore. And then embrace this new identity that's going to become you as a result of the lessons you've learned, that where you've taken back the pieces of yourself, done what is necessary, being vulnerable, being honest with yourself, looking at those mirrors, being authentic, well, I think you said that already, being vulnerable, being prepared to face the truth. No, no trying to defend it. Just let it be, because who you are is enough, is more than enough, right? And all those things that, I felt I needed to be ashamed of, that I was carrying guilt for. Once I let them out, it wasn't what everybody else thinks. You're right. People will still laugh at me, when they read the book about having mental illness and all those kind of things. It will come up wherever I go. It comes up in interviews and all that kind of thing. It's fine though. What's important is how you feel about it now. That you have now the freedom to know that nobody can hurt you with that anymore. Nobody can say, well, you're a little crazy. I go, listen, you've no idea. I'm even crazier than you know, right? You're okay with it. It's like if somebody called you,
Yeah.
if someone called you a green, hairy back monster, right? You're just going to go, well, it isn't true. Who cares,
Mm.
right? Only by someone calling you something that you feel might be true can it trigger you, right? Only by that. So
Yeah.
if you own it and you go, yeah, I was mentally ill. I probably still have mental illness, right? I still do crazy things, but I love that about myself, right? I love being adventurous. I love
Mm.
taking risks. It makes me feel alive, right? So you look for the positive things that you have gained from having that experience, and there are plenty, right? And I say in the book, listen, we're all on the spectrum of insanity. Everybody. People say, well, I want to be normal. Well, show me a normal person and we'll see if we can match you up. There's no such thing, right? We live in a world that's insane. Look at what we do. What other animal on earth, and we're a mammal, right? What other mammal on earth makes weapons to destroy each other? What other animal would live on a planet where there wasn't enough for everybody? They just take what they need, and then there's plenty for everybody, right? What
Mm.
other mammal on earth would get together and say, "How can we screw everybody else over and keep everything for ourselves?" It doesn't happen, right? So we live in the same world.
Mm.
How many? Imagine aliens coming to Earth and go, "So, what is this thing? This car thing? What is this about?" Well, what happens is, yeah, you need car to get around because you can't walk anywhere. Why can't you walk anywhere? Never mind about that. But you buy this car, right? And when you go to buy this car, you buy it, but you
Mm-hmm.
don't have the money to buy it. So what you do, you borrow the money to buy
Mm.
the car. And then when you drive the car off the lot, it's worth 30% less than what you paid for it. And you borrowed the money, you're going to pay interest on that. And the aliens are going to go, that doesn't make any sense. What? That's insane. And people go, yeah, I know, but everybody does it. So 90% of what we do as human beings is insane. So own it and just say, yeah, we're living in the same world. I'm not normal because we don't even know what normal is. I'm somewhere on that spectrum of insanity, right? Fine. Okay, we'll live with it, right? It's okay. But then don't judge other people from where they are on that spectrum, right? Because you don't know what's
Yeah.
going on for them. You
But
don't know that it's happening for them. You think it's happening to
yeah.
them. There are all kinds of silver linings there. Okay, you sounded like you want to ask me a question. Do you want to ask me a question?
One thing I'm so intrigued by, Dr. Edwards, is what you spoke. What I'm so intrigued by is what you were talking about when it came to abandonment. And
Mm,
I've experienced that. And you were talking about the pain that comes with it, right? And I don't
mm,
think that a
mm.
lot of people understand how debilitating that pain can be.
Yeah,
That abandonment is actually one of the most debilitating physical pains you can experience,
yeah,
not just emotional but physical.
yeah,
um, and it takes you a while, and then and abandonment is absolutely a time where you then start to question your self-worth. You start to question if you even deserving of being worthy in any way, if you
yeah.
if you deserve to be human. So
You should.
it takes you
Mhm.
on a journey of actually trying to find the worth inside you. And in each of the cycles that you go through after that, from pain. And you find, I just want to say to our viewers, I've experienced it, Dr. Edward has experienced it, and we can tell you, when you go through that kind of pain, the growth that comes with it will astound
Mhm,
you.
mhm.
It'll recreate a version of you didn't even realize existed. So have you had that same experience after abandonment?
Yeah. So, something to understand about abandonment, right? So there is a group of people
Mm.
that lived thousands of years ago. They're called the Essenes, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
tortured to believe that Jesus was an Essene, right? None of that makes it. It doesn't matter. But the point is, they wrote many, many books, some of which were found in the Nag Hammadi Library, which was a series of books, thousands of pages of books that were lost for centuries. But in there, it explains what they call the three
Mm.
universal fears. That there are three fears that are actually contained in the human consciousness. That every single person that is born into humanity experiences at various levels. That it's their challenge or opportunity to overcome in their lifetime. Number one is abandonment. Number two is self worth.
Mm.
And number three is being able to trust, right? So, as they explained in their writings, that at some part of our soul, or some part of our spirit, we believe that God put us down here and then abandoned us and left us here. The second self worth
Okay.
is that somehow, some way, we can never measure up to what our Creator expects from us. Self worth.
Mm.
Three, that if God left us here and abandoned us, how the hell can we trust God? And so that affects every relationship. It's very difficult to trust. So we have to reframe those beliefs, right? We have to change those patterns of belief
Mm-hmm.
and install new patterns of belief that you're never abandoned because your creator is with you every second, every hour, every day, every month, and every year of your life. It's impossible for him, her, whatever you want to call her, right, to not be with you. So you are never
Mm-hmm.
alone, and therefore you're never abandoned, right? You will see reflected on in
Mm-hmm.
the external world that people will abandon you, right? But they're reflecting back at you that fear for you to overcome, right? And once you do that, you'll never feel abandoned again. Self worth. We're constantly being told that we're not worthy. We don't look like this picture of a woman or this picture of a guy. You don't have an eight pack. You don't have this image that you're told is how you're supposed to be in the world. I'm just giving you one example, right? I'm not intelligent. You're not smart. You didn't go to college. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you have the wrong color skin. You're from the wrong ethnicity. All these different things, which are bullshit, right? They have no relation to reality. Reality is, your creator doesn't make garbage, right? Your creator only creates people, things, and objects that are perfect. So you are perfect. You go, well, I don't have this and I don't have, but that's perfect. Well, there's no such thing as perfect. Yes, there is, right? In your essence, you are perfect. There's nothing wrong with you. Nothing needs fixing.
Mm-hmm.
We got to change some of the things you believe, right? That you've been taught to believe. And that's okay too. It's not being, well, now I got to hate my parents or my caretakers. No, they told you those things to give you challenges in your life for you to overcome. Otherwise, what the hell's the point of
Mm-hmm.
you being here, right? In our spiritual essence, we are all fully enlightened beings. There's nothing to learn, right? So if we come into this earthly experience, we got to forget all that. Otherwise, how could you have an experience? And so each one of us is at a different level of remembering who we are. And that's the journey. But we have to have challenges put in front of us to get to that point. Otherwise, what's the point? And if we didn't have challenges, we wouldn't do anything. We just sit around, and that would be boring, right? We wouldn't create a purpose for our life. And people say, well, I
Mm-hmm.
don't have a purpose. Well, decide.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've been asking God and he hasn't been answering me. Yeah, because God's not going to tell you what your purpose is, period. Never, ever. You are going to decide your purpose based on your experiences and what you feel passionate about. That's simple. But if you wait around for God
Yeah.
to tell you, you're going to wait forever, right? God wants whatever you want. That's why God gave
Mm-hmm.
us free will, right? We
Dr.
got
Edwards, if we can, if you can just explain, because we're talking about spirituality now. And one of
Mhm.
the things I actually was very curious about when I read your biography was that you have a PhD in spiritual counseling. Now, if you can tell us a little bit more about that, is that specific to a certain religion, or how, when you say spiritual counseling, um, what does that mean?
Okay, great question. All right. So first of all, people get confused with spirituality and religion, right? And they are two completely different things, all right?
Mm,
So
mm,
one way one way you could define it, and this is kind of fun, right? So I had somebody say, well, here's the difference. Religion is for people who don't want to go to hell. Spirituality is for people that have already been there,
mhm.
right? So funny, right? So
I love that. I absolutely love that.
usually, and that's usually what happens.
I think I've
Usually,
already been to hell, so that
there you
explains
go,
my
right?
belief
There you
system.
go. There you go, right? So,
Yeah.
and everybody gets what they need and what they want. Some people still want to have a religion. That's fine. And if it's working for you, great, right? But very often, people who get into
Mhm,
spirituality have had a religious upbringing or they've had a religious part of their life. And it just gets to the point where that no longer
mhm,
works for them anymore. They know there's something more, right? And so they get into spirituality. It doesn't mean it's
yeah,
better. It's just different, right? And it's a different part of your life. Just like when you're a kid, there are certain things you have as a child that one day you grow it out of and you just say, I want to go to something else. And that was a bad analogy because that's not saying you grow out of a religion, but I'm just saying what you want and what you're attracted to changes, right? So spirituality is more about understanding our spiritual nature. So we're not humans having a spiritual experience. We are spirits having a human experience, right?
mhm,
Yeah. So we're having this human
mhm,
experience. And one of the things that very often happens for people is they do have a trauma in their life that causes them to look into more spiritual understandings. Not always, but very often, right? They have a spiritual crisis and then, taking a Tylenol doesn't work anymore, right? Or, taking some of the drugs that traditional medicine might prescribe, they just don't work anymore. And so they look
mhm,
for more organic or more naturalistic remedies. Now, let me be clear. That is not saying that there aren't some traditional Western medicines that can be tremendous help. I'm not saying throw that out. I'm just saying that over time, what we have to realize, or what we do realize, is that these drugs are simply a reflection of the biochemistry of our body. We don't need any drugs. The biochemistry of the human body is more advanced than any pharmaceutical that you can think of. We just haven't learned yet how to tap into it, right? But it's all there. Just like the brain is capable of doing more than
mm,
any AI or anything else out there, right? Just like the body has
mm, mm,
so much
mm,
electrical potential, we could light up a city, right? But we're learning little by slow, step
mhm,
by step, how to get to the point where we can tap into that. And we could always we could talk about that another time. But anyway, so this is what it means to be more spiritual. It's not dogmatic, right? Religion is usually dogmatic. There are certain things you have to do and say and believe to be part of that religion. Otherwise, they'll throw you out, right? Or they will frown upon you. You'll be judged by the rest of the congregation, those kind of things. Whereas spirituality just says, look, you got to be who you are, not follow dogma. You may go completely off the charts, do things in a completely different way, but that's how we find new things in life. That's how we learn more about ourselves and the world we live in, not following a dogma from 2,000 years ago. Because if we were doing that, things would be just like they were 2,000 years ago. Nothing would change, right? So the people who push the boundaries, there's a famous
mm,
quote by Steve Jobs, and he said, here's to the crazy ones, here's to the misfits, here's to the people who want to follow their own path because they are the people that will change the world. And they do, right? So don't feel like because you might be different, think about things differently, that there's something wrong with you. Actually, it means there's something right with you, right? So again, it's just putting a different
mm,
spin on what we've been told to believe, what we've been told to judge about ourselves and others. And recognize the biggest thing for me was to recognize that it doesn't happen to me, that it happens for me. That's easy to say. It's a different thing to
Happens
live,
for me.
right?
In my experience, you said that you tend to go into spirituality when you've experienced trauma. Now, I've experienced quite a lot of trauma in my life. And in my experience, what I was taught, my dad was a minister, and, I was taught to be a certain way. And what happened to me was my experiences, my responses to those experiences, um, what I was taught to in terms of spirituality, it
Mhm.
couldn't contain what I had.
Yeah.
And so I needed an outlet from that containment.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you understand. And sometimes you're taught that you be put in a box and you're told that this is how spirituality works. But in my experience, what I was taught couldn't contain what I had learned and what I had experienced. It was far beyond that. And I had to go outside of that containment to find something that could speak to my soul and could speak to me at the level or meet me at the level that I needed to be met.
Yeah.
Right. So that
Mhm.
is where my spirituality comes from. I don't I'm not religious. I just believe that it's a it's your soul connecting on a level that meets you.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's what I just said, right? That religion usually boxes you in. You got to stay within these confines, and spirituality has no confines, right? It's completely free, right? It doesn't have the dogma that religion does, usually, right? So,
Yes, yes.
and there was something else you said there that, yeah, so spirituality is not going to contain you. It recognizes that the human spirit has to be free, right? If it's contained, it will rebel, right?
Mm,
Just like if you're told not to do something,
yes,
suddenly now you want to do it. You hadn't even thought of it before, but now you want to do it because you're told you can't do it, right? Because that doesn't give you
yes,
freedom. It boxes you into something, right? Yeah. So absolutely. There was
yes.
something else you said then, and it just I probably should have wrote it down um, about that. But yeah, it's about freedom, And so when we get back to the book, and I was saying that this toxic relationship gave me freedom because it allowed me or taught
Mm,
me to let it all go, let it out. Because once you have, it has no power over you. Even though, as you say, when you
yes,
let it out that you've had mental illness, people still give you a hard time about it and maybe laugh at you about it, put you down because of it. But
mhm,
then it won't hurt you. It won't matter to you.
mm,
And what you will notice, as I'm sure you do, people say it less and less because they can't get to you. People saying that to you are trying to get a rise out of you. They're trying to get a trigger. No nice person is going to come up and try and
that's true.
humiliate you for having some mental illness. No nice, kind, loving person is going to do that, right? And so, you don't
Yeah,
have to say anything. You can just walk away, and that's more than enough. And they realize that they can't hook you from it, right? You could just say, I know, isn't it
yeah,
great? I'm so
yeah.
blessed that I had that mental illness because it helped me see life in a completely different way. For example, now I know that when people say mean things to you, it's because they're not happy. You know what I mean? Now, you didn't say anything about them directly, but you basically told them the only reason you said that to me is because you're not happy. You called them out in a nice, kind,
I love what you said because so often we internalize what people say about us, right? And we feel down about it and think that being told we are mental or not good enough or whatever is something that is our fault. But I
right.
love what you said. You said no good person, no kind person, no good kind person would come and do that to you or would come
Mm,
and say that to you. And that
yeah,
for me, that's an eye opener because why then do I need to tolerate people that do not have elements of love, kindness, and goodness in them? I
right.
don't. And I love that. So it gave me a totally new perspective on how to handle those kinds of attacks.
Beautiful.
And
Beautiful.
thank you for that.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. Yeah. And that's the great thing about
Now
having
let's
conversations.
go.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Before we run out of time, let's talk about your the Venus Flytrap project. I have to tell you that when I saw that name, right, Venus Flytrap project, the first thing I thought of was fly and
Hmm.
trap, and then I
Yeah.
was like, okay. But then that's just how my mind wanders sometimes.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I thought of Venus, the planet, red.
Yeah.
So you tell me what the Venus Flytrap project is about.
Okay. Well, it's the name of the book, the Venus Flytrap book, right? And the subtitle is
Yes,
"Sex,
yes,
Lies, and Repercussions." So where did that come from, right? We should probably talk about that first, right? How did I come up with the name? I'll tell you.
yes, yes,
So
yes.
when I met Tamaz, who was the star of the book, right? We met online, and we met through a website, and I'm, trying to get a date with her, right? So I did get a date, and then she set a date with me one day, and the next day she canceled. I'm like, oh my god, right? I got to get her back, right? So then I said, so then I'm thinking, so I got her to go on another date with me, and then I'm thinking I got to tie this down so she can't cancel again. So I make arrangements for this day, and I tell her we're going to have an amazing time, and then I text her, so what's your favorite flower? And she said, bird of paradise. So I like to joke around, as you see in the book, right? It's the sarcasm is dripping off the pages. So then I said to her, okay, mine too. It's a bit expensive though. So what's your second favorite? Right? Like it was too much money to buy the bird of paradise, right? But instantly, Dr. Tash, she came back, Venus flytrap. She named the book. She described the
Oh,
whole thing, right? So she didn't know that consciously, but here she is, this beautiful bird of paradise, but inside, she's the Venus flytrap. And in that instant, I knew. My intuition said she's dangerous. Now, I could have walked away then, couldn't I? But I didn't. What did I say in my head? I kind of like dangerous,
you
right? This
like
is
the
gonna be
challenge.
fun, right? Okay, right. But I took that.
And you thought you could tame it.
That's right, of course, right. I thought I could save her, right? That I could rescue her, I could save her, and I could fix her, which was impossible and is always impossible. But that's what a lot of men are taught when they're young boys. You know, you got to find the damsel in distress. That's what all the stories were when we were kids, right? All the stories were about saving Snow White,
Yes,
saving Cinderella. It's all sending those messages into your head, right? The only thing I didn't have was a horse. Anyway, my point is, we're taught these things and they stay with us subconsciously, right? So she very clearly told me that you don't need to save anybody. You don't need to rescue anybody. And you definitely don't need to fix anybody. And she did that very powerfully, right? It became very clear because I had to say to myself, because I'd always believed, being in counseling and personal development, everybody is fixable, right? Everybody can change. And here's the truth: no, they can't. No, they can't. And those people, you have to let them go because they're on their own journey and they're not either ready for it yet or they never will be. And you got to be okay with that.
hmm
You can't, as you just said, take it as a challenge. Well, I'm going to save you whether you want to be saved or not. I'm going to rescue you. And it's like, leave me the fuck alone, right? And you got to be okay with that. You got to realize your own limitations and that you're not here to rescue anybody. You're not here to save anybody. And you're definitely not here to fix anybody. All you can ever do is help people realize who they really are, that they don't need to be fixed. They just need to
Yeah.
recognize
You know
who
what
they
I think, Dr. Edward? Like God gave us free will, um, people have free will, and who are we to go now and change their free will? We can't. And so when we decide that we want to tame them or take on the challenge of trying to change them, we're only
Mhm.
setting ourselves up for disappointment because they're never going to change. They have free will, and that is what it's always going to be. And
Listen,
with the only thing we are responsible for is how we respond to life and what we do.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I'm thinking, where were you when I was 16? Tell me that then, right? Yes, because I went through my whole life thinking that was
Thank
true,
you, thank you.
right? Oh my God. And I kept repeating the
Oh,
pattern.
that's the biggest compliment I could have ever gotten. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. I've been through 4 marriages, Dr. Tash, right? So it just shows you how messed up I was, right?
Okay.
You know, and people used to say to
Well,
me,
I'm halfway there.
oh, you're at 2. All right. Well,
I'm
listen,
past 2 now, so I'm halfway
I was going for the world record, but I gave up. So here's the point. I had been through all those. People would say to me, you went through 4 marriages? Yeah, man, what was wrong with all those women? I say, hold on a second. 4 marriages. Throughout those 4 marriages, there was only one constant, me, right? So it's on
One
me, isn't it?
constant.
Right? It's only me, right? So now people play their own role in a relationship. I know, I get that. But at the end of the day, you can only take responsibility for yourself. And you wouldn't have been through 4 marriages if you were perfect, would you? You wouldn't have been through 4 marriages if there wasn't something about you that was creating that, right? You're drawing that into your life and you're doing it over and over again. You know what the definition of insanity is? People say,
Doing the
yeah,
same
doing the
thing
same
and
thing over and over
expecting a
again, putting a
different
different result.
result.
I say,
Yeah.
no, that's not the definition of insanity. The definition of insanity is
Oh.
me, is me. If you look in the dictionary under insanity, there's a picture of me. Well, there should be, right? So I lived in insanity for a long time, right? But finally, I turned around and said, okay,
Yeah.
I got to take responsibility. So what is it about me? And I know what it is, right? It'll make you laugh if we ever get to talk about it. I'm not going to get into that right now. But I had deep trauma. I had things about me that were causing me to be, as I say, unmarriageable. I am completely unmarriageable,
Okay.
right? For certain reasons, right? Which is okay. And I'm okay with that now. Whereas before I was trying to be again what everybody thought I should be. I should be married, and it's like it's just not for me. It just isn't. That doesn't make me bad. It just means I'm not, like I said, I'm unmarriageable, right? So accepting yourself for who you are is also important and being okay with that. You're not going to fit in necessarily with society's norms, right? Because of my childhood trauma
Mm.
and seeing what my parents went through. They were married for 63 years, but trust me, that was not that was not a good thing, right? How they hadn't killed each other by then is a miracle, right? So they weren't
Mm.
happy. Does
Mm.
that make sense? They weren't. It was not happy. So marriage was never, in my mind,
Yes, it
marriage is not
does.
a happy thing, right? Marriage is not a happy thing. That it's going to confine you, and I saw how my parents treated each other. And I was like, I never want to be treated that way, right? So I'm not saying that's true for everybody. It was what I had adapted into my life. And because I
Yeah.
believed that, it kept reinforcing it, right? So I've been on my own for 4 years. not like I've been in a cave, but I mean, I've not dated for 4 years, right? And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with being on my
Well,
own.
you and I both. So you
Yeah,
and I
okay.
both. Exactly 4 years. I understand. I understand.
Yeah, right. So I'm not saying I won't date again in the future, but right now I'm happy. I got so much going on in my life. I got this book coming out. It's one of 3
Mm.
books. I'm doing speaking, I'm doing podcasts, right? I'm doing all this stuff and I love it, right? And my one of my downfalls is when I get in a relationship, that becomes my focus and I let all the other things go. And I'm determined not to do that again. There you see, right? We got a lot in common, right? So, um, and then so people have said to me, about this relationship, and they go, "Well, are you healed now?" And I would say, I have no idea, right? They go, "What do you mean you got no idea? You've been alone for 4 years. Surely you're done now." I said, "You never know unless you're faced with the same situation again, right?"
Again. Hmm.
And as it turns out, I was, right? And I wasn't even tempted to go back. I
Okay.
just didn't respond. Now,
Okay.
there was a part of me, Dr. Tax, that's going, yeah, but isn't that rude? Isn't that disrespectful? Shouldn't I at least say hello? No, right? Absolutely not. Because the moment you give any energy to that, you're done, right? Just it's like
Mm.
every ship you come across is not one you have to take. I'm not getting back on
Is it
that ship.
one is it one I well, I haven't had the opportunity, I mean, to test it, right? Whether I'm healed or not. But is it something you recognize immediately?
Well, no, only when you're faced with the same situation you were before and you acted in a way and you did things in a way that caused that to continue, or if you don't feel anything and you're not even tempted to go back in it, then you're not going to, and you're healed, right? Because you don't want it anymore. The only reason
Okay.
it happened
So when
before is
you are presented with it, you recognize it, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
you just say, it's like if you always loved, I don't know, strawberry jam, right? And you used to eat it like out of the jar. You loved it so much. And then you don't have it for a while. You realize it's not good for me. And then sometime down the road, someone presents you with a jar of strawberry jam, and you go, "Yeah, I'm not even want it. It doesn't. I'm
Mm-mm.
not. It's not. I'm not even resisting it. I just don't. I don't even want strawberry jam anymore. You're not the same person, so you don't want that anymore, right?
After 4 marriages, Dr. Edwards, is there, and me with 2 marriages, I know that there's a certain exhaustion I have in terms of that entire process. Did you ever
Oh,
feel exhausted, like just, you know, like
yeah,
depletion, complete depletion?
absolutely. But that is when you have the greatest learnings because your defenses are weak, right? Your resistance, your walls are
Yeah.
coming down, and you don't want to fight anymore, right? You're just like, okay, and then the universe
Mm.
goes, okay, we can get some work done now, right? We can really work on you now because you're not going to fight
Yeah.
anymore, right? You're just not going to fight anymore, or not as much, right?
Mm.
So yeah, just getting to that point of depletion. Yeah, and I've got there a bunch of times, and I did it again 4 years ago. I went, enough, right? I'm not doing it anymore. I'm really going to take time for myself to reflect on
Yeah.
myself, and that's when I wrote the book. That's when I wrote the book, right? So, and like I said,
Okay.
I've been running away my whole life, right? All my life, I've been running away. What from? Myself, right? I've been running away from my past
Mm-hmm.
because it was too painful for me to look at,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then
Yes.
eventually, it got to the point where I couldn't run anymore. I was exhausted, and so then I had to turn around and face myself, and that's when the real growth happens, right?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've achieved more in the past 4 years than I have in 20 years. And I think, wow, was
Yeah.
was that all I needed to do? Let
Well, it was
go.
it was the beginning, right? So you could heal yourself. So
Yeah,
if and when you decide to be in a relationship again, you'll be different. You'll handle it differently. You won't give yourself away like we talked about, right?
mm,
You'll continue to do the things that are important to you.
yeah,
Now, it doesn't mean, I mean, people hear this, they go, "Oh, I was so wrong." No, you weren't wrong. There's nothing wrong with you, right? For part of that time, you got a lot
mm,
out of that. You were giving and loving so much, and that's good. It feels good to give that kind of love and that kind of attention to somebody. All we want to do
yes,
is just we
yes,
want to
yeah,
just balance that with taking care of yourself too, right? Because the
yeah,
more you give someone and sacrifice yourself, the more that person will take from you, and then they'll expect that from you, right?
and
Do you know
and
what I
then
mean?
we condition them to expect more and more and more, right?
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. And then you're so spent because you've given so much, you got nothing left to give, and then you burn out, right? I can't give anymore. I can't do
Yeah.
this anymore, right? Yeah.
Mm, mm. And so tell me, when you talk, you've spoken about your heartbreak, your spiritual awakening. When did you come to that point of spiritual awakening where you thought, you know what, I need to, my soul in this,
Yeah. Okay. Well,
my spirit needs to be released. My spirit needs more.
yeah. Well, interesting question. And I would say it was a number of things that happened in my life, right? So, I was mentioning earlier about this experience I had when I was 16, when I had what was called
Yes.
a manic episode. Well, it turns out it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out it was a spiritual awakening. But I didn't learn this until many
Okay.
years later when I went to see a psychotherapist, right? And he explained to me, he said, "Well, Stephen, let me tell you something. Usually, when someone has an episode like that, it's not mental illness. It's actually your spirit and your soul wanting to expand. And it's
Stand.
giving you a spiritual experience that will stay with you, and it will provide you with some tools and experiences that will help you in the future," which it has, right? Because going through that experience, I know there are other dimensions. I know that you can get a higher level of intelligence. I mean, I was so far, as
Mm-hmm.
they say, I was out of my mind. I was out of my mind. I was in my soul and my spirit. And that was the beginning, really, of the awakening. I'd had experiences a little bit before, and this is a little controversial, right? So you may or may not agree with this, but I I used to hear voices in my head, but not like you got to go and kill somebody or you got to create. It would just be things like,
Mm.
give me an example, right? What I heard is I'm thinking about religion because I went to a school that was um, Christian, right? So we read the Bible and all about Jesus, and I'm going,
Okay.
I just
Mhm.
didn't even this is I'm probably about maybe 10 or 11, right? And I'm going, I
Mm.
just can't believe that this guy came to earth and we killed him. Why? To save us from sin? Well, how's that working? It's not
Mhm.
working, right? So what, did he die in vain? What was that about? Right? And so I began to question, was this really the son of God? Because he didn't treat him very well, did he? So then it came into my mind that the son of God is not a person. It's the son. The sun is the light and the way. It gives everything life. It's not
Mhm.
coming from another human being. And that is what caused me later in my life to study the stars. And the Bible is simply a personification of the story of the stars. So Bethlehem is bread, means bread, right? It's a sign of
Mhm.
Virgo. The sun and the 3 days of resurrection, that's the story of the
Mhm.
stars, where on the 21st of December, the stars go down so low in the cross. There's a cross of the stars, right? The sun goes
Yes.
down
Yeah.
so low, it looks like it died. And then 3 days later, what happens? It comes back up again. It's resurrected. And you can go through every single part of the story, and it's right there. Now, at 10 years of age, I'm not going to go to school and say, "Hey, listen, everybody, I figured it out. You all got it wrong." Obviously, right? I'm not going to say that. And I kept it within myself because I'd be too afraid to talk about that. Even now, it's like, what are people going to think about that, right?
Yeah.
I was told that voice in my head, not directly, but by making me think, I came to that understanding. So I was having, excuse
Yeah.
me, I was having these spiritual experiences, and I had a number of them in my life that were very powerful. I even wrote a
Mhm.
book. I even wrote a book that was channeled, right? This is not something I normally talk about, right? It was God speaking through me. Or, some people say, well, it's your higher self. Whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter, right?
Conversations with God.
There you go.
Conversations
And
with
so I
God.
met Neil
I
Donald
kind
Walsh.
of like that.
I met
Yes.
Neil
Okay.
Donald Walsh before this
Oh
happened to me.
wow! I love those books.
Oh
I
my God,
love it.
amazing, right? But here was the difference with my book, Dr. Trish. As
Yes.
I'm writing it, I was thinking, oh, this is ridiculous. I'm doing this just because I've heard about Neil Donald Walsh. But every time I wrote, and when I came to write, I'd be really scared, right? And I would always have the radio in the background. There was a certain channel that played really beautiful music, loving music. And I kid you not, when I was writing, the words from the song on the radio would flow into the words that I was writing. It was
Wow. Wow.
unbelievable, right?
Dr.
So,
Dr. Edwards, I have to stop you. We just have 30 seconds left. And
okay.
I have to tell you, I feel like I found a best friend. I mean, you and
Oh, that is the
I
greatest
could talk to
compliment you
you
could
for
give.
hours. I could talk to you
Oh,
for hours.
oh my God,
But
that's so
we're
beautiful.
going to have to say goodbye for
Yeah.
everyone watching Mental Health Bites. It was the amazing Dr. Stephen Paul Edwards and talking to us about spirituality and heartbreak and acceptance. So, if you can, Dr. Edwards, can you tell us where people can find you?
Yeah, sure can. That was beautiful, by the way, and one of the nicest things you could ever say to me. So thank you for that. I appreciate it very much. Okay, so
Oh, I meant
well,
it.
yeah, and you know what? You know what? At the beginning, when all that was happening, at the beginning, I go, "This is going to be amazing. This is all going to be perfect." You know, when we had the challenges, the technical challenges, and trying to get through to you, and uh, Rahul couldn't be on, and all that stuff, right? I knew it was going to be perfect, and it was amazing. I mean, that was just a really amazing podcast, and I hope that everybody listening is going to get a lot out of it. Anyway, to find me, I actually sent you a couple of links, and you know that, right? So there's a link to get the first three chapters of the book for free, or you can get a guide on the 7 signs that you're in a toxic relationship, and all for free. And then the other thing is that if you really want to take this deep and do the deep spiritual, mental, and emotional work, then I'm giving your viewers a free or complimentary 30-minute session with me. And then we can chat and see if there's a connection, the vibe together. And if we feel like we can work together, then we can take it from there. And I think also I've sent you the website so you can post that too. And that's it.
Oh, it was such a pleasure. It was such a pleasure having you. Please stay with us while we say goodbye. I say goodbye to everyone. Thank you so much for being with us in the past hour and watching us. If you missed the show, please catch us on all our streaming apps, all the streaming apps. And I was in the deep end today, so thank you so much for giving me your support and being with me as I spoke to the incredible Dr. Stephen Paul Edward. It was one of the best podcasts casts that I was a part of. See, it's making me tongue tied. That's how you made such a huge impression on me, Dr. Edward. So everyone, please try to look up Dr. Edward, follow him on Instagram and Facebook, and go to his website and check him out. His Venus Fly Trap Project is the name of his book, and we'd love to have you support us. And yeah, I want to say from South Africa and from Florida and New York, where Ra is, have an amazing day ahead, an amazing evening ahead, and we're sending you so much love and light. I'm Dr. Tash Reddy. You can follow me on Dr. Tash Reddy Official on Facebook, Instagram. I have numerous books on Amazon and Barnes and Noble as well. So I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to be part of you. Goodbye, good night, and God bless.